Good morning, Hafaday, Lesor Mwamwa, and welcome to your House chamber. I'd like to call this SNILD JGO committee meeting to order. Present with us, we have our LB staff, we have our Sergeant at Arms, Will Ogden, we have our Mr. Media, LJ Costru, we have our legal counsel, Carrie Comstock, and we have Nick Rabalaman, our LA. And with that, I'd like to, and also our IT, Jonathan Diaz. And with that, I'd like to recognize our LA to please call the roll.
Senator Corina L. Magofnia. Representative Marissa R. Flores.
Present.
Representative Diego Vincent F. Camacho.
Present.
Representative Daniel Iacchino. Representative Vincent R. Aldan. Vice Chair Senator Manny T. Castro.
Estiga.
And Chairman Representative Edmund S. Villagomez.
Present.
Chairman, currently we have 4 members that are present.
Thank you, Nick. And with 4 present, that constitutes a quorum to go ahead and move forward with today's agenda. We now move down to item number 2, public comments, and the podium is open. You'll be given 5 minutes. Please keep your public comments related to today's agenda, which is the Governor's Communication 24-41, the renomination of Ms. Eleanor B. Alinas. Podium's open. Please state your name and the entity you represent. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair and members of your committee. My name is Jose C. Mafnas. I'm the Director of the Division of Customs and Biosecurity. And I'm here, Mr. Chair and members, to express my support for Ms. Eleanor Alinas' renomination to the zoning board. I've known Eleanor, for so many years. I attended the hearing at the Senate when she was nominated. And, being a businesswoman, I think it's very ideal for her to be part of this board. She knows the business community, especially with the zoning issues that is affecting the business community. So with that, Mr. Chairman, may I ask for your committee to fully endorse Ms. Alinas to the full body, SNIL body, and to confirm her. It would be a great asset for not only the zoning, but for the people of the CNMI as well as the business community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mafnas. The podium's still open. Before we move forward, please proceed, Senator Magofnia. Before we proceed to the next speaker, Nick, please include Senator Corina Magofnia. Count her as present for today's committee meeting. The podium's still open. Thank you. Okay, if there's no further public comments, we can go ahead and proceed down to item number 3, which is the new business. And with that, Sarge, can you please bring up the SAA and the nominee up to our table right here, our panel. Sorry, I get confused with what to call this. All right, so we'll go ahead, and I recognize, oh, my bad, sorry. I'm used to being the speaker and not a chairman of the committee, so before we proceed with the new business, can I get a motion to adopt today's agenda? Second, okay, motion has been made and seconded. Any discussions? Ready? All in favor to adopt today's agenda, please say aye. All opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it, the motion carries. We apologize for that technical difficulty. We'll go ahead and proceed now to item number 3, which is the Governor's Communication, and Mr. Regis, you have the floor.
Good morning, Halfadays and Tito, Honorable Chairman Edmunes Villagomez, Honorable Vice Chair Manny Gregory Castro, and Honorable members of the Saipan and Northern Islands Legislative Delegation Standing Committee on Judiciary and Governmental Operations. For the record, my name is Jean-Paul B. Regis, Special Assistant for the Administration under the Office of the Governor. On behalf of the Honorable Governor David M. Apateng and the Honorable Lieutenant Governor Dennis James C. Mendiola, I thank you for conducting this SNILD JGO committee meeting and the opportunity to appear before you today. It is a privilege to formally introduce the renomination of Ms. Eleanor B. Alinas as the Governor and Lieutenant Governor's nominee for the Commonwealth Zoning Board representing the private sector. I am hopeful that all required documents have been submitted, which details her professional experience and educational background. Having obtained her master's in business administration from Argosy University in Hawaii in 2012, Ms. Alinas is an exemplary entrepreneur with a distinguished record of success in government and private sector. She is a proficient manager, a franchisee of Max's Restaurant on the island of Guam, and a founder of Kalayan Inc., making her a notable business leader in our community and a highly viable candidate for consideration. Her substantial education and extensive knowledge have enabled her to excel in her endeavors. A committed professional known for delivering exceptional results across all her existing projects, Ms. Alinas is eager to once more contribute her extensive experience, relevant credentials, and unwavering commitment to serving the Commonwealth. We are confident in her readiness to address inquiries and articulate her preliminary vision for the future, and we respectfully seek for your favorable approval for her nomination. Thank you, Jesus Mosi Zangiliso, for the opportunity to introduce her to this august body, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Regis. Now I'd like to recognize Ms. Alinas if she has any opening remarks before we proceed to questions and discussions. Ms. Alinas, you have the floor.
Hello. Oh, okay, so it works. Good morning and half a day. Magandang umaga po. Chairman Edmund Villagomez, Vice Chairman Manny Castro, the honorable members of the Saipan Northern Islands Legislative Delegation Committee on Judicial and Governmental Operations, distinguished guests, family, friends, and members of the public. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today for this confirmation hearing. I am deeply honored and grateful to the Honorable Governor David Apateng and the Honorable Lieutenant Governor Dennis Mendiola for nominating me for a second term to serve as a member of the Zoning Board. I also want to sincerely thank members of the SNILD Committee for today's hearing and for the important work that you do in reviewing nominees and ensuring that public service positions are filled with care, integrity, and accountability. This nomination is both humbling and meaningful to me. Zoning decisions affect the daily lives of residents, businesses, neighborhoods, and communities. They help shape how our communities grow, how land is used, how development is balanced with the quality of life, and how we preserve the character and culture of our neighborhoods while planning responsibly for the future. If confirmed, I understand that serving on the zoning board is not simply a title or a position. It is a public trust. It requires fairness, preparation, patience, and a willingness to learn and to listen. It requires reviewing each matter on its own merits, considering the law, respecting the process, and making decisions that are thoughtful, transparent, and in the best interest of the community. I believe the zoning board plays a vital role in maintaining this balance. On the one hand, communities must be open to responsible growth, housing opportunities, economic development, and improvements that meet the needs of residents and property owners. But on the other hand, that growth must be managed carefully with respect for safety, infrastructure, neighborhood character, environmental concerns, the distinct culture of the island, and the voices of the people most directly affected. If given the privilege to serve again, I will approach every application and every issue with an open mind, as I have done in my first term. I will listen respectfully to applicants, residents, professionals, and fellow board members. I will do my due diligence, ask questions when needed, and make decisions based on facts, applicable regulations, and public interest. I will also strive to be fair and consistent, recognizing that the decisions of the board can have long-lasting impacts on families, businesses, and neighborhoods. I also want to acknowledge that public service is a responsibility shared with the community. A strong zoning process depends on public participation and trust. Residents should feel that their voices are heard, that decisions are made openly, and that board members are committed to serving the community rather than any personal interest. I am committed to upholding that standard. I'm ready to serve, and I look forward to the opportunity to continue to contribute positively to the work of the Zoning Board and to help support a thoughtful and responsible vision for our community's future. Thank you. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you, Ms. Salinas. And with that, I now open up the floor for any discussion or questions to the nominee. Please raise your hand and you'll be recognized. Recognize Senator Corina Mago.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning to you again, Ms. Alinas. It's good to see you. Congratulations on your renomination, and thank you for accepting. I guess I should start off with if you could share with the committee members your desire to serve again for another term. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Karina. My first 2 years as a board member was more exploratory. This was my the first time that I've ever held positions such as a board member, particularly for zoning, which has also been like a pain point as a business at some point in the course of performing or doing business in the CNMI. It has been a challenging journey, mainly because at the time that I was appointed, I was based on Guam. So that was my first challenge. And then the second challenge is, coming from the private sector, we don't have as many rules, as many protocols. And so coming into this with the background of the private sector, it was an eye-opener for me. And in the beginning, it was difficult because, we have, as public servants, it always has to be the public trust that we need to safeguard. And there are protocols in place, such as quorum, meeting quorum requirements, for example. And since the board, they all have like different jobs. Sometimes the quorum, meeting the quorum can be, can be a challenge. So that was an eye-opener for me. But during my term, I realized how important this job is, how important this position is to the community, as it affects every single person who considers themselves a resident of the Commonwealth. And I am a resident of the Commonwealth, and I also want to do my part in ensuring that the Commonwealth is prepared for the future without losing the culture, without losing what the people stand for, without losing the things that we value. And so, having seen that, I was humbled to know that the Honorable Governor David Apatang and Honorable Lieutenant Governor Dennis Mendiola reappointed me, and I I accepted the renomination because I truly believe that there are still things that I can contribute to make the zoning, the agency, the process, hopefully better.
Thank you for your answer. You're currently the chairwoman for the board, correct?
I was until my term expired.
Oh, so your term is expired?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
Senator.
So, okay. So as the former chairwoman for the zoning board, what would you say at that time was zoning's vision collectively as a board?
Okay, so collectively as a board, when I came in, this was also the time when there was discussion about Senator Manny Castro's bill. So that was foremost in our collective like psyche in terms of addressing what the bill basically represents. And so that was our priority. In the discussions of the board, it was determined that there were steps that we can take as a board collectively. Please bear in mind that this has not been like approved by
Right.
the board at that time. It was, we were still in the discussion phase. But I know that our board, through the leadership of then board chairman Henry Hofschneider, already undertook the steps to revise the text, like text amendments to the Saipan zoning law. So that was already, it was already gaining momentum. And then when I took over the board, I felt, the board chairmanship, I felt that because we were meeting once a month, it was not enough time. We will not finish in time. So we did talk and decided to, you know, present to the board. However, we didn't have time to really meet. We had quorum issues. But basically, my proposals were, one, to expedite the text amendments by hiring a third party, like a lawyer, to perform the text amendments and present it to the board, just to make it faster. And then the second one was to modernize the processes in the agency. I understand the concerns of the community. Permitting was slow. There were feedback that it was not fair to, you know, like, so the treatment was different with other applicants. So we heard that, we understood it, and we had steps to address it by first, by through the text amendment. So the Saipan zoning law, it's voluminous. I think that we can simplify it, make it CNMI custom build it, so to speak, for the CNMI. There are a lot of provisions in there that are vague, and some are just open to interpretations, and this is where the problems, I think, come in. Like, personally, it depends on who is in the position to interpret what the requirements are, and that by revising the text of the law, I believe that we can eliminate that problem eventually. So that, and then also, you know, looking at ways to, for us to also do our part in making sure that we are also responsible fiscally. So we were already starting to look at the process of transferring the office to the one in Capitol Hill. But again, time has been a constraint for us, and we were not able to do that. And if confirmed, I will make sure that those plans are included for board approval, and hopefully it will be approved. They will be approved, and we can start the process as soon as possible.
Thank you for your answer.
Thank you.
There's a lot of areas to cover in just this hearing, but I would try to stay focused on some of the areas that I feel we need to address. So earlier you had stated that when you came on board, one of the very first things that the board collectively tried to tackle was the bill that Senator Manny and myself, I co-authored, introduced. But aside from that bill, were there any other matters or issues internally that the board identified and discussed and determined how to resolve some of those issues, to your knowledge?
To my knowledge, we, like it's an agency, like any agency, there's always like issues. But as far as I know, it was it's always been how do we streamline the process. It's always been that, like, what are you doing? What steps are you doing? And so in the course of being a member of the board, I found out that majority of the processes are still manually inputting this. And so that, I think, in and of itself is an issue, because as if we can remove that part, then we are able to utilize the resources more effectively in terms of like helping the community, rather than being on the computer and transcribing what was written down. So that is one of the issues. For me, what I saw was really the process and how to identify segments in the process to streamline them. So that, I think, was one of the main things that I really observed.
Okay,
as-
so staying on the topic of process improvement, as a board, knowing that, or identifying that was part of the issue that a lot of the businesses were challenged with, right, because of the delay,
Yes.
and obviously manual processes, and maybe some part of the process that don't really need to be there, so
Yes.
streamlining the process. Taking all of that into consideration, what are some of the actions that the board started to take to implement and improve the process?
Yes, thank you. I think this gives me a chance to give props to our awesome team over at the zoning office under the leadership of our acting zoning administrator, Hubert Alapuzo. So when the bill came out, we really sat down and we talked to the acting zoning administrator, and he went back to his team. And after that, he was able to streamline the process. So the Saipan zoning law allows us, or gives the zoning office 21 days to process the permit. That's in the law. So, but because we listened, and we want to reiterate this, the people in zoning, they are very, very conscious of their role. They are very conscious of the fact that what they do can and will affect people in the community. So they try their real best to address the concerns. So going back to the permitting process, I am very, very happy and proud of the Saipan zoning team, because that 21-day process is now averaging about 3 to 5, 7 days. It has been significantly like dropped to the number of days if there are no issues with the application. Assuming that the application is complete and that they are able to comply with all the documentations, it's really, really fast now. Clearances are same day approvals now. So I am very, very happy to report to the team about that, to the committee, sorry.
Thank you.
Thank
That
you.
is indeed a great news, and kudos to the team
Yes, thank you.
at zoning for finding ways to streamline the process and make it more effective and efficient, cutting down the processing time. Okay, so that's the process. You stated earlier that the regulation itself is voluminous. And so I know you kind of mentioned that you guys were considering hiring someone else to, I guess, review and consolidate the regulation so that it's customized or more fitting for the CNMI and not someplace else. So can you give us a status update on that particular action that you guys have taken?
When we started talking about this, I was already the chairman of the board, and it was a discussion among like board members through emails. Unfortunately, we couldn't really enact it because of quorum issues. And at this point, at this time, it is still a pending task. And that will be one of the, I think, agenda that I will make sure to push if confirmed.
Okay, so if I'm understanding what you're saying, the revision of the regulation is pending as a result of lack of quorum.
Yes, during
Okay,
my.
to address
yeah,
whatever the issues and concerns are and how to move forward with that.
Correct.
So, staying on the topic now on quorum issues, what seems to be the underlying issue for zoning, lacking quorum?
So when I came into the board, we were lacking, I believe, one member. And then shortly after I came in, one board member did not want to be reappointed. So at that point, we were lacking two. And then, so it was mostly because board members were nearing their term expiration. So it was mostly like that. So I came in like on my first year. On my second year, first year we were lacking two. The second year that I was there, we I believe two board members also expired. So it was mostly technical.
Okay, maybe let's backtrack and so that we can have a better understanding and picture of how the zoning board is composed of. So currently, as the how many board seats are there for the board?
Oh, sorry. So there are 7 seats
Seven
for the board.
seats.
Yes.
And during your time before you expired, how many seats were already filled and how many was vacant?
On my first year, 1 seat was vacant. And it was already vacant when I came in. And before my first year was over, another seat became vacant. So now there were only 5 board members at that time. Going into my second year, around February of this year, the 2 board seats became vacant. So it took a while to fill the seats. I am not privy to any information as to why
That-
this is so.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yes.
And then how many members do you need to have quorum?
We need at least 4.
Okay, so during the time that you were a board member, was there ever a time when you guys didn't have enough numbers to meet quorum, or was it consistent? There was enough board members, but just was challenging to have quorum.
On my first year, I believe it wasn't really an issue. It was on the going into 2026 because the terms of the 2 board members ended, if I'm able to recall it correctly, I believe sometime around February. So very early on in the year, we lost the 2 board seats. So
But you
that
guys still had enough members to conduct a meeting, to have,
at that time there were 3 left.
so you guys.
4. Sorry, there were
So
4
you still
left.
had enough members to
Yes.
have quorum to conduct a meeting?
We did.
So I guess that's what I was trying to understand. In the 2 years that you have sat in as a board member, was there ever a time where the zoning board just didn't have enough number of board members to have quorum? But based on your answers, it sounds like that the whole 2 years that you were there, you guys had the requisite number of members, right, to have quorum to conduct meetings, but for various reasons, it was very challenging for the board members to come together and hold those meetings. Now, understanding that, was it the same board member that always had a hard time or challenge committing to the meeting? I mean, let's go back. Under the law, the zoning board is required to meet at least once a month, right?
Yes.
Minimum. And so what happens when the board is not fulfilling that mandate?
Okay, so let me, I apologize for the confusion. Let me clarify it. On my first year, we didn't have any issues of board meetings.
Okay.
We always had
Okay.
quorum. Going into my second year, starting this year in 2026, that was when we started, getting issues with that. Primarily because 2 board seats at that time were
vacant.
Vacant, in addition to the 2 vacant seats
Right.
on my first
But
year. So
but
four
regardless,
seats.
you still had the 4 members that could meet to and have quorum to have the meeting, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So that's established,
Yes.
right? And so I want to go back to what the law requires of the board members, right? To a minimum of 1 meeting per month must be done. And so were there any legal advice from your legal counsel as to what happens when you guys are not fulfilling that requirement as a board?
So
I mean, because I went back and I've attended multiple board
Yes.
meetings, okay, only to find out that it had to be canceled because of last minute requests of a board member on being unable to attend, and I specifically look at the section of the law which requires the board to meet once a month,
Yes.
and unless that board member, especially if it's the same board member always having issues coming to the meeting, unless it's a result of medical reason that they're not able to be there and they have a doctor's note that they can't attend that meeting, then that would be excusable, right? But in this case, it's always something else. It's nothing that applies to what the law allows for an excused absence. So if you have 2 or 3 consecutive unexcused absence as a board member, what are the steps or actions or ramifications as a board that they need to do to address that issue? Because whenever the board doesn't meet and you guys already have an agenda in place, you have permits that you need to review, right? These permits are pending review and approval by the board, but every time there's a board meeting, the board meeting is canceled or postponed. What are some of the impact that has, and especially if it's coming from the same board member? And as a chairwoman, right, like what
Yes.
actions have you taken to remedy that issue?
So, being new to the chairmanship of the board, I have to admit that I don't have enough experience at at that point that I was the chairman, I didn't have enough experience to truly deal with it. And we were advised by our counsel, like consistently, I spoke with him. And at that time, I did not believe that that we can do something about it. Like whenever there's a lack of quorum again and again, that was also honestly frustrating to me and to the other members, because we understand, the pain points of the businesses, and that was always my question to the acting zoning administrator, like, what permits are pending right now? Are they business applications? Which ones are new applications? And so that's always been our priority, to make sure that we address the new business permits. And so answering the question that you asked, it is honestly, I am not aware at this time of what we can do as a board to address the lack of quorum.
I mean, what was the legal counsel's advice? And I'm sure the legal counsel would have taken a look at that issue, right? Knowing that the board must meet a minimum of one meeting a month, and for board members who are absent 2 consecutive times, which are unexcused, right? Like, there has to be some consequences. And if the board member is unable to attend every meeting that is scheduled by the board members, right? And then last minute, like notify the board that, he or she can't make it, there has to be some consequences to that. And if that board member cannot fulfill, their commitment to the board, then that, it's only right that the board member would resign and allow someone else who can come and attend the meetings and move those processes along. I mean, it's pretty disappointing, it's great that we hear great news that there's been a lot of improvements on the process side, right? But permits is also part of that process, and if a lot of those permits are pending review and approval by the board, but the board has been consecutively canceling meetings for the last 3 months in a row. Like, what impact does that have on that business who is trying to open, right, and do business and start generating revenue so that they can start paying their BGR, so that the government can realize those revenues that are paid into the BGR, so that we can stay on top of what the budget that we projected for this fiscal year. And there's a cycle here. There's a domino effect to everything when something is not being done the way it should be done. And if the issue is lack of quorum, we have to understand, why is it that for 3 consecutive months, zoning has been canceling every single meeting that they call? I mean, I would assume you guys coordinate all of that before you guys even put out the notice and OGA, to the public to call that meeting. But on the day of, the day of the meeting, people are already showing up to the meeting. You guys are there, and then you get a notice or some kind of communication that the same board member is unable to attend. And unless it's a medical emergency, or it's it's an emergency, then I can understand, right? It's excusable. But if you're always going to call in the day of the meeting or email on the day of the meeting and say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I have another meeting or another commitment to go to," that's unacceptable. Knowing the fact that there's only 4 members, available to conduct the meeting, but why even commit to the meeting prior to putting the notice out that you'll be there, and then the day of the meeting you cancel out? Anyway, I am hoping that that the board can fix that problem.
Yes.
Right? Because first of all, you guys are already in violation of
Yes.
the zoning law for
Correct.
not meeting once a month, right? And to have 3 consecutive months of no meeting. There's a lot of consequences that are associated with that. So I'm moving along with that, but please do look into that and resolve it when you guys.
Well noted,
Yeah.
Senator.
Okay.
Thank you.
And then just my last question, Chair. So you talk about the rental. Right now, you guys are located at the 360 building, right?
That is correct.
Okay, and then when is that lease expired?
I believe around October, if I'm not
October of
mistaken.
this
Yes, October of this year.
Okay.
Correct.
And I'm asking about the rental because I'm not sure if you're aware, but the proposed budget for FY27 has been reduced significantly, right? And I'm pretty sure that that would have an impact on zoning's budget. And
Yes.
so we want to make sure that, you know, your rental, which is the space that you guys are utilizing to conduct your business, is funded. But you know, when the lease expires, what is zoning's plan to for the office? Are you guys going to continue to stay there and request for a reduced rental? Are you guys planning to relocate? I mean, can you update us on what, because you know, September is right around the corner, and then
Yes.
October, I mean, we have to deliberate on the FY27 budget, you know, soon. And so we need to start understanding what are those expenses, what does it look like, and how can we make sure that zoning continues to have a place to do its business?
As soon as I sat as a chair, that was one of the things that we discussed with the acting zoning administrator. He was able to say that we do have spaces that were granted to zoning already up in Capitol Hill. There's also funding that's already been earmarked for one of the buildings. And as soon as we learned about that, we started to, again, like push the process of the funding being released. And I know for a fact that the acting administrator has been actively, I believe, like going after the funding and in terms of releasing the funds as soon as possible. In the meantime, we've also coordinated with the Department of Public Works to ask if they can assist us in, you know, creating the plan for the office up in Capitol Hill. So this allows us to minimize any expenses by working with the other agencies and hoping that they will help us in this endeavor, and at the same time really pushing to get the construction and you know the moving of the offices in time for the October deadline. However, the typhoon is going to, I think, really push this plan back further. So I haven't met with the acting administrator, but that is also one of the things that I wanted to discuss with him and see, you know, where we're at. At this point, it's not even part of, I guess, the consideration because everybody's efforts are into the recovery process.
Thank you for that answer. And I understand all the challenges that everyone's faced with, but you know the expiration of the lease is just around the corner,
Yes.
and we just want to make sure that we are not reacting when that time comes, and we're taking actions. I mean, if there are already 2 buildings awarded to the to zoning, I would assume, and funding, I would
Only for one
for
building.
one
Yes,
building, right? But
yes.
at least get that process started,
Yes.
because everything here takes time.
True.
And so whatever it takes to, I don't know, renovate or make the building ready for the agency to move into, a lot of those are, take time, and not to mention, the number of contractors here on the island is very limited. And so
Correct.
a lot of the contractors are already taken by all the different projects that we have going on. And so if we take that into consideration, right, where does that leave zoning if nothing has moved? And then the expiration of the lease comes up. Are you guys going to continue to be there and pay whatever rent you guys are paying there? Are you guys going to be able to afford the rent with the limited financial resources that the government has to provide to all the different agencies? So I just kind of want to put that on the forefront, because it
Yes.
is coming up due fairly quickly, and because you keep mentioning the acting administrator, I believe the position was vacant since last October, and it's now June, almost July. So, like, what's going on with the vacant position, and why is it still in acting capacity?
The last time that we got reports from the acting zoning administrator was there were some miscommunication. It was an internal issue about like putting the JVA out. Unfortunately, I don't really remember what the details were, but then we did get applicants, and because there were only 3 zoning board members at the time that the applicants were presented, the board decided to wait for the other board members. So at that time, the governor and lieutenant governor already, I believe, submitted their renomination of 1 board member and the nomination of 2 board members. So we were very hopeful that we will be able to include the board members in the process of selecting the
So-
administrator position. And I asked, the confirmation took a while to happen. I have been informed that the renomination of Steve Sablan, I think, has not been fully done in terms of the swearing in, I believe, like just the last part. So those schedule, conflicts are.
So let me just ask one more, I promise. So is the hiring of the administrator position being affected as well because of the lack of quorum? Because it is the zoning board that hires, right, or
Yes.
approves
Yes.
the hiring of the administrator. And if the zoning board is having issues, with quorum, then how,
I believe that that's one of the reasons for the delay.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank
That's
you.
all I have, Speaker. Ayu.
Thank you, Senator Magofnia, floor leader.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Karina, for your questions. And thank you, nominee Alinas, for your answers. And so I'm going to go a different approach on this one because I think zoning has a lot to do with a lot of the economic concerns that we're facing. And I'm going to hone in real quick on this last typhoon that we had. And in my precinct, I'm not going to take the board's position on anything and so forth, but I want to understand what your idea is moving forward. Because previous boards, and I'm not going to concentrate on the past, I'm going to concentrate on you and what you're going to have to bring. And my expectation, should this board accept your nomination. So during this typhoon, everyone was out of power, okay? And I was hearing, making my calls, trying to fix and attend to my precinct in terms of hooking up power in everyone's house and figuring out why certain houses and certain businesses had power here, no power here, power there, no power there, okay? And I was looking at your application for zoning, and not one of the questions in your zoning application does it even clear anywhere from CUC. But what I do like about your application is that your application actually asks if the land belongs to the individual applying for the zoning permit, which is critical for me because of Article 12. Most importantly, the core of my precinct, which is the Garapan tourist area, which is the biggest moneymaker outside of the hospital and all the other businesses within my precinct. Okay. So now you know where I'm going. Now, Article 3 of the Saipan Zoning Law of 2013 sets out the duties of the zoning board to administer a zoning system that manages land uses and protects the public interest. And Article 11 requires that land development and subdivisions provide adequate public facilities and services, including utilities. Given those duties, how will you ensure that before voting on a major rezoning or subdivision, you have reliable information from CUC about existing and planned power and water capacity so that the board does not approve projects that utilities cannot realistically serve?
Thank you for that question, Congresswoman Flores. Okay, the zoning law, as I mentioned earlier, we have also received reports that it like overlaps with other agencies. I cannot speak for the other agencies as I haven't had a chance to review their particular rules and regulations. So crucial to the question that you asked, truly, in my opinion, is to going back to the text amendments, there has to be clear language in the law. What's expected, what is needed, what is provided, what, like it needs to be very, very clear. At this time, some texts are vague. It depends on who's interpreting it. It depends on the person, right? It's very, very subjective. And so the text amendments is crucial. At this very minute, the agency is trying to follow the law in the best way that it can.
Okay.
Will it have the wording about the CUC and how we're supposed to enforce it? We do have an enforcement section. They go and they do enforcement inspections or inspectors, right? So they go and do inspections, especially on existing plans, existing permits, and there is that aspect of our the job of the
So you have capacity to coordinate with other agencies such as CUC to ensure that whatever it is you guys pass, there's adequate power and water to, accommodate the request. Can you pull out the zoning map, please?
water.
And the only reason why I'm asking nominee no is because I can't believe I actually said no. That was just a little bit humor here. No pun intended for the person that. Okay, so I'm going to concentrate on my precinct because my voters are from this particular precinct and they are not happy with the current situation after the storm, before the storm, and now I want to make sure that moving forward, in the event we approve your nomination, that my questions and my issues are going to be addressed should this board approve you, because I represent Precinct 3, okay? Yes. So if you look at 13, 15, 16, right, I'm assuming, maybe I should have had the election map too, because then it will show me where really is my precinct here, because once again, there's 5 maps, and we don't know which map which agency uses, which is another problem.
Yes.
So again, going back to you as your issue, if we should nominate you, please fight for one map that we use so that we all know whether it is election map, a zoning map, a CUC map, a hospital map, because everybody has a different function when you're talking about accommodating services and improving that, especially in utilities. So that's one of my other concerns. So if we look at all of this, it's heavy. I'm heavy on Precinct 3, and I think you've passed in my precinct many times, Ms. Salinas. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so you see what's going on. I have a nice commercial building right in front of Middle Road, and then all of a sudden you take a cross road in between, and there's like a garment factory that was there. For some reason, I don't know how it ended up there, but we cannot tell the landowner what to do with their land. However, zoning now gives you that map and that blueprint to say whether or not it is allowed there. My one concern is go back to this commercial residential area zone, because that does not work now, especially in my precinct. Because I got way too much apartments, and then you go take one road and there's like something that has nothing to do with the definition. Clearly define what is residential, commercial, and then you have mixed residential, commercial. I don't understand that. You got too many things happening, and we can't seem to isolate and build an economy because it's like a puzzle. And it doesn't make sense to any investor that wants to come in, okay? That's number one. So that is, yeah, I really should have asked for the election map because this one tells me absolutely nothing. Okay, anyway, moving forward. The Carapan Corps also sits in my precinct. And after the typhoon, I had all kinds of trash. I still have trash there. But my problem is now, whoever approved the business, zoning had to be a part of that. Because your application says if you are not the owner of the land, you must indicate that on your form. Can you pull out that form? Just so that the people can understand that really you also have a due diligence to do, Ms. Salinas. And my expectation, should this committee approve you, is clear for the record so that my precinct residents hear me ask for what it is that I'm expecting out of you. So anyway, so now I'm passing by, I'm going through, and I see all this private land, commercial, heavy in the core, with their trash, toilet bowl, tire, you name it, it's all out there. The problem is that it belongs to somebody that's not here for 10 years. Now, when that occurs, whose problem is that? Is that zoning? Yes or no? To give the enforcement. Is that a zoning position or is that a BCQ position to clean up their mess? Because the land belongs to a person that's subleased or leased, okay? You, in your application, already know that in your database, if it doesn't belong to the person applying for the zone permit, you're asking who the land belongs to, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So in this core, it's heavy rental by non-resident, business, visa, that's what you want to call them, or maybe married to a local that now owns the land. I don't know, okay, because I don't have access to that. So who is it? Zoning's responsibility, okay, as a former board, but now trying to get approved again. Is it zoning's responsibility to go and look for these people so that you can tag an enforcement and a citation on this property? Is it zoning's responsibility, yes or no?
I believe we are one of the agencies tasked to address this under the public nuisance law.
Okay, so you and who else? BCQ?
This BCQ, I believe maybe BEH, Environmental Health.
Okay.
And then working in close coordination with the mayor's office and DPW. So it's an interagency.
Right. Now,
endeavor.
that's my next question. If this board should approve, go back and revisit those interagency agreements because apparently either they're not updated and it doesn't work, right? I'm more concerned about my precinct because I got a lot of issues. I got trash. I got people that are renting land that don't respect my land, the land of the people, and they continue to throw their trash. And I want someone to be held responsible for this because doing business here, as I said many, many times, is a privilege.
Yes.
And if you cannot be here to protect the precinct in which I serve and my people elected me to serve in this, then you should not be doing business here, period. I don't care what kind of investment it is. It must protect the environment and must have economic sustainability for the future after me, okay? So take a look at those things. Take a look at your MOUs. Take a look at your database. And rest assured that I know that Senator Karina mentioned something about absenteeism. And she's right. But I cannot isolate one board because even here at the legislature, sometimes they're absent 50 times without even filing a paper. There's boards as well that are crucial to passing pertinent information and papers for this long-term success, and they don't even care. CUC is probably one of them. So whoever your secretary is should be the one to enforce that. Let you know, whoever the chairman would be, for the record, okay? Understand the Robert Rules of Order and understand everyone's function. But my concern to you is, should this board or this body approve you, that is my expectation for my precinct. And I will expect that if we approve you, that those key issues are addressed for my precinct alone. Because at this point, I'm already interested in corridoring my whole precinct. Really. Because I got too many competing agendas. While my precinct suffers, another precinct is doing better than mine. I don't know why, but maybe I don't get it. That's maybe my personal opinion. But when my tax base is high in my precinct, and I can't even improve the road, I can't even get equal distribution of utility load, my water is shut down at 7, 8 o'clock at night, while some people have 24-hour water, and I'm high in commercial business residents in commercial in my precinct, you make that make sense. And then you're going to tell my precinct to pay 44 cents with no justification? So I don't even know how much power I'm giving out to CUC. But that's what I want to know. And that's where I think the board should ask those questions, because when you are now going to approve permits, I expect that CUC sign off on that, because when the power goes off from a next devastation, I expect to know how much load we're giving out, because if we say power it up, my residents should not wait 3 days because they need to balance the load. I should already know how much load is there, and no business should be approved anymore if it's gonna continue like this. Because if you look at the central part, it's heavy. But you go down south in Precinct 3, not so heavy. You go up north, Navy Hill, not heavy. I'm not understanding why nothing's happening beside me, but everything there is heavy in central area. But we don't get 24-hour water. We have traffic lights that's missing.
Yeah.
We have street lights that's missing, or it goes 5 and then stops for 10 street light, then 10 is up. So you understand the inconsistency here,
Yes, absolutely.
right? And I don't know whose fault that is, but as a zoning board member, I expect that you represent everybody, not include just Saipan as a whole, but the precinct itself. So if you have any questions, I would love for you to, sit with me if you should be approved, and let me tell you what my constituents are seeing. I can't say I don't want any more commercial, but first I'm going to ask you, fix mixed commercial, residential, and residential commercial, because that's like, I don't know. I don't understand what a mixed commercial residential is and what a residential commercial is. Do you know?
It's very confusing too. I completely understand. I see where you're coming from. I understand the pain that you're going through. As a business myself, we are in the same predicament. We still don't have power. Thank God we have water, and at least that is a consolation in and of itself. But again, we're still not completely happy to, in a sense that we still don't have our utilities 100%. But if I can address
Please.
the issues that you mentioned earlier, that you are suggesting that we should definitely look into in this incoming board if I am confirmed in today's hearing. So the first one, so let me address that in multiple parts. First, about coming up with like one map. I am absolutely 100% in agreement with this. Like coming up with different maps, it's just confusing. We should, as a community, just be able to have one that addresses the different aspects of of living in the CNMI. So I believe that coming up with the one-stop shop, I think that is a great beginning for the community, and because the agencies are already there, I believe it's going to be maybe a little bit smoother to come up with something like this. In addition to, it is my understanding that the government is doing this like application that's like a software, so to speak, where all agencies have access. Just modernizing the system in the CNMI as well. So I believe that the one-stop shop, that's a great start for now, and definitely this will be something that I think we can pursue. And then, my goodness, I took notes, but I cannot read my own handwriting. So, so on the you mentioned that the mixed commercial and the residential and all these other definitions that are confusing. You're absolutely right. So it is my understanding that the Saipan zoning law was, I believe, taken off of Washington. So it's very Washington is a very advanced state. I could be wrong, but I am
It's a metropolitan. It has nothing to do with an island.
absolutely. So if I can just give you an example, so residential, like agricultural, right? According to our law, the Saipan zoning law, you have to have setbacks. Okay, that's understandable. But our law says that the setback for a residential agricultural zone property is 50 feet from all sides. So can you imagine what's left of the property? But that's our zoning law. And this is the reason why it has to be a priority. Because that is where I think majority of the problems are coming out of.
And I agree, and I'm glad that you recognize that because, once again, as a representative for Precinct 3, should this board approve your nomination, I have an expectation. And my expectation is high, especially because you are a sitting board. If we approve you, you'll be a sitting board member, and everybody knows that anyone that sits in a board is quite influential, right? You have the autonomy to help design, create, reimagine what the Commonwealth would look like based in which capacity and board you represent, no?
Yes.
So it's important to me that you know that. My last question real quick, because this is one of the underlying concerns again that we have, conflict of interest. We know that this place is tribal. Everybody's related to each other, which is good that probably you have no relation to anybody, right? Because then it puts you in a position. But I'm going to go back because we have had members of this commission or this board that were related to certain people, judges, you name it, attorneys, you name it. Okay? And not to cause and point fingers at anyone, but it happens. It will happen in the future. We can't stop that. Our pool is very small, no? I can't believe I keep saying no. Sorry. I think I'm thinking of somebody that used to say it in this presence, and they probably must be talking about me or something, but anyway. So my concern is, how will you address conflict of interest should any applications fall on your table, whether you're sitting as a chairperson or a voting member? What is your position on conflict of interest?
Again, it boils down to the text of the law. We are mandated to follow the law. That is our mandate. And if the law says, well, it's for example, right, if you wanted to convert a 40-footer, I did a little bit of research on this because I have a 40-footer coming in, and then I wanted to know how long I can just leave it there. So I came across this provision where if you wanted to convert a 40-footer as your residence, that well, it needs to have a window and all that, but there is a wording there that's very, very vague. It says that you have to have, I don't exactly recall the exact phrase, but an ample amount of landscape. I mean, that's what the law says. So going back to the question, your question, Congresswoman Flores, what does ample exactly mean? If I had conflict of interest, or in a sense that I like this person, I can make that ample, I mean, like 2 pieces of potted plants. If I don't like you, I mean, I can make it difficult to where you have to have like a whole landscaping, thing going. So again, it goes back to the language of the law. If
Okay.
so to eliminate the conflict, this particular issue here, living in a small island, the law has to be clear. It has to match our culture. It has to match our size. It has to address our issues.
Okay. All right. Last one, because I think I've exhausted my time, but I do think that you have a vision and you know what needs to be addressed. And I really hope that if this board nominates you, you really reimagine, because not only does the law say you have to, right? That's true, you do. But your board also has the autonomy for board resolutions, which previous boards have already conducted and signed off themselves, like during an election period. One day it's go ahead, you can put your board. Then the next day, I
Right.
guess in Senator Manny's time, all of a sudden it changed, right? So the inconsistency is one thing. The autonomy to know and understand what powers you have is another. If you have a chance to talk to your board, meet, reimagine, and look at this, because if it was taken from DC, right, would have been greater for me if they took it from Philippines, because then I can control the airspace. But when you're talking about metropolitan area like DC, it's span.
Yes.
Because their district is land area,
Yes.
right? So take a look at that, revisit, and if you can offer those amendments, really understand what your capacity is and what powers you have in terms of that autonomy and your position should you sit there. That's crucial to effectuate change, because if you're unclear about your job and your description and your powers as a board, then we'll just come back here again, renominating other people that probably won't even know what their job duty is, and we don't want that, because there's no more time.
Yes.
We got to reimagine, rebuild, restructure, and make sure that our economy is at least able to survive another 10 years. Thank you for your time. I hope this board approves, and thank you for your answers. I yield my time.
Thank you, Congresswoman.
Thank you, Representative Marissa. Representative Camacho.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Ms. Salinas, again, for accepting this nomination. It's never fun, zoning, But I do want to ask, I mean, obviously, there are a lot of issues. What would you say, based on your experience the past 2 years, would be the root cause of the challenges you're facing right now? Is it manpower? Is it because there's still an acting administrator? What really is the issue here?
I believe it's processes. It's just there's a lot of back and forth. That's one. Manpower in the enforcement division. And then again, I know I keep harping on this again, text amendments to the law, because at the end of the day, everyone in the office, even us, we follow what the law says. If this is what it says in the law and it's in black and white and it says 50 feet setback, it's hard not to follow something like that when it's very, very specific. So those 3 things are, I think, the most important issues that we need to tackle within the agency, and we've already started with the processes. Just to give you an idea, the enforcement section of zoning, well, there's 5 enforcement officers. So each officer handles about 15 active cases. These are mostly businesses that are under enforcement. On top of that, they go to the villages, they go to the community 4 times out of 5 days in a week to do their enforcement inspections. They are swamped, and with 5 people, it just cannot be done. And I hear, we have like the public nuisance, we have the blighted properties. Despite that, the agency was able to do an inventory of the blighted properties and was able to include them in its own inventory list, about 168 identified blighted properties without funding. So while they're out there, while they're enforcing, they're also, listing down what it is that they can see, and they're confirming that these are blight properties. And so they are doing as much as they can. I understand that much of the work that the agency does is not necessarily communicated to the public. And so public relations is also one of the items that I wanted to do when I was chairman of the board, and that's creating a social media presence to inform the public what we do, like on a day-to-day basis, to introduce the staff, to humanize this agency that has been, I believe, getting a lot of flack from the community, and well, there's part of it that where misinformation is, I think, involved. So there's the social media. That's something that I think that we need to do to also inform the public what the agency is doing.
All right, thank you for that. And speaking of which, regarding the blighted properties, right? We're gonna keep bringing this up, but I do see the enforcement on that. We see the notices.
Yes.
But up to date, has zoning assessed any fees or fines to those property owners to date?
So I believe that our zoning enforcement has been, I happen to have the information on that. If you can just give me a couple seconds. Okay, so they were able to identify about 168 properties. These are high priority sites. Out of the 168, they posted 45 signs. Again, mind you, with the idea that it's not really part of the funding that zoning gets. And then out of the 45, 19 actually, of the 45 actually complied. So we're very, very happy to report that to the committee. Out of the 19 that complied, 9 were properties that were demolished. So a couple examples that I want to cite are the property right across from the Canoa Hotel. So that is, it looks really good right now. And it was mentioned that the owners are getting interest for this property. So that is, great work. And then another one is the former movie station in Dandan. So these are the areas that have been addressed and successfully turned. And then there are some people who are also pending compliance. They're asking for some extensions or whatever, right? So as far as the fines are concerned, that is something that I have not heard any reports of. It is my understanding that there's been no fines issued at this time, and that the zoning staff, they're actively engaging with the owners of these properties. That is my understanding.
Okay, and in no way, shape, or form am I encouraging, collecting fines. It's really just, I guess, just to find out, right? Because I know obviously there are some easy targets. Not saying that it should be. It's times are hard right now, right? And a lot of these abandoned properties, abandoned by the leasee and left with the owner to pay for that fine. That's not
Exactly.
right.
Exactly.
Can I ask a question regarding renewals of permits? Compare the turnaround time for zoning permit renewal versus new business.
At this time, a renewal of permits of existing businesses, they're
With
called
no changes.
yeah, they're
to the
called
business, yeah.
clearances. It's same day now. Same day. As long as you submit your application, there's a threshold. Let's say in the morning, you should be able to get it in the afternoon. But if you miss that threshold, I honestly don't know what the threshold is. So that's the admin side. But the report is it's same day now. No changes in the application. For new businesses, again, if they are, as long as they're not major and they're not conditional, the time frame, and of course that their application has to be, of course, like complete, and all the documentation that's required, it's all there. The turnaround time is, I believe, like 5 to 7 days now
For a new business.
for new businesses. Yes.
That's an improvement.
Yes, absolutely, and that's why we are truly, I think, blessed as a community to have the team that we do at the zoning office. They are really working really hard for the community.
Thank you for that. And also, before I end, you did earlier allude to I guess, the implementation or enforcement of Saipan zoning law, right? And I do know that the chairman of the delegation did make a request to the board for a sit down and perhaps really going through the Saipan zoning law and really just trying to simplify it. Maybe that's where a lot of the issues are.
Yes, absolutely,
But
Congressman.
we are waiting for that. He had requested this earlier this year, and we still haven't met. I hope that, if and when you are confirmed, that you make that a point so that we can at least, get the ball rolling and trying to make it easier for
Yes.
not just the board, but the staff.
Yes. So then Chairman Henry Hofschneider already started the process of the text amendment. So it was already tackled. The problem is that there's just not enough time to do this, and that's why when I took over the position, my suggestion is let's hire and give it to somebody else, because us alone we just cannot do this. It's better to have a third party do it, and then once we're done, then we submit it to the committee for review. And I mean, we can definitely sit down, so we can also hear what your point, the point of view of each congressional district. I think that would be a great way to start the conversation. And then when we do hire, if the board agrees to that, then we can forward all these suggestions coming from each of your either districts or the agencies or whichever, right? Whichever segment of the public you serve, but to bring all that and have this person or company do it. I think that is the best way to go, because then it becomes really consultative.
Thank you. That's all I have for now, Chair. Thank you. Oh, and I just want to recognize also Mr. Hubert in the back there. Thank you for your service. It's never easy, man, but we do appreciate your presence here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Rep Camacho. Rep Marissa, yes.
I'm sorry, I know, because I kept saying a word and it took my brain somewhere else. But just as a reminder, no, and a request, yes, Mr. Alapuzo, great work in the small amount of time that you and I have been exchanging. You've been very helpful. But two things that comes to mind, Ms. Salinas, the courts have rules on certifications on how to apply certain notices to certain civil actions. Can you please check with your counsel, especially in areas where it's heavy land lease and it's causing blighted structures, and check what are your recourses, because Article 12 is there for a purpose. And if you have exhausted all procedural rules in the court to remedy civil action, right? Because they have, number one, abused or not clean and followed the rules in terms of blighted property, cited them over 50 times and nothing happened, right? Because they're not here. Please check with the council that you have, because if you can actually exercise your powers as a board and use all those rules and have them certified to the last registered agent identified through commerce, maybe this legislation or this legislature can help look at how we can take that property back and give it back to its original owner, rather than imposing fees for the owner to fix. That's not the purpose of Article 12. Article 12 was meant to have the person to lease, in my interpretation, whoever's going to lease it bring value. And if there's no value within an X amount of time that you have your administrator going out and assessing, what are the rules within the courts that you guys can use as far as giving notice, ample time within the civic procedures, and what we can do to help bring that land back and give it back to the original owner. That is my request, because if we can figure that out with our council, we would be happy to draft that legislation, because that should be given back to the person who owned the land. And that, it's rhetorical, you don't have to say anything. God, I lost my train of thought. But that's the one that I really want you to, if this board or this committee should approve, please check priority, because we're having a really big problem with that. And I would rather see the land given back to the owner as opposed to giving more citations, especially if you cannot find them. Use the procedural courts as a place to start, and check with your attorney and look at the laws and see how you can do that. Because if that's something we can fix, then I think that we should exercise and try going down that road, because we're headed towards an economic cliff, and I think people should be afforded a right to do what they want with their property, because we did not anticipate that the lessee would not bring value to the land, especially in the Garapan core, where we're having problems. And Administrator Hubert, I think you and I had this discussion. I'm sorry, I'm going to go back to you, ma'am, but please check that and let us know if you can
Yes.
give it to us in a correspondence. That would be great. Thank you. I yield my time.
May I just quickly make a comment? We did discuss this because at this point in the blighted property, the agency is just doing it again without funding, just like on the side for now. But so this issue hasn't really come up in the sense that it's literally facing us at this time. But if I remembered correctly, the blighted property law doesn't really have any provisions when the lessee fails to keep its end. So it stops right there. It automatically assumes, the law automatically assumes that the lessee will always take care of the property. So it stops right there, and then we don't have any means of moving forward. So I call on this committee and Congress to help us with this.
And real quick, but the Constitution It's a lot stronger. And exercise and take the avenue of looking at Article 12 as the main argument to address these lease properties, because I think that that's where you're going to get your strength. The blighted is one thing if it is applicable to me, I think for me, right, I don't mind being blighted if I own the land. I have a responsibility to the Marianas. But if I lease my land for 50 years because there are no current standards within an agreement, right, that says Section G of this lease will always have this statutory language, right? It doesn't have that. If you have a good attorney, they can put that in. But if you're poor, desperate, and you don't know that language is important, you're subject to abuse from a individual coming in with no recourse to you. So use Article 12 as the main argument and figure that out, because we have plenty of attorneys here. There's about almost 300. Find the one that can agree with what you're saying and help you argue that case, because the people depend on Article 12. But I do not suggest that you should be here doing business either, and you're not going to take care of the environment around you. I think that's abuse, and it's not doing any good to our people, to the business sector. And surely, like I said, if it's a privilege to do business here, and if you can't take care of the land around you and the people that it affects the most, then really I don't want your business. Thank you.
Noted. Congresswoman Flores.
Thank you, Representative Flores. Vice Chair, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chairman. Welcome. I think this is turning into an oversight committee, but at least by a lot of the members discussing some of their concerns, then there will be no need for an oversight, right? I just wanted to bring up, I was listening to a lot of what was said. And in fact, the reason why I decided to introduce the legislation to suspend zoning laws and transfer it to DPW temporarily is because of everything that you just mentioned, which is it's very unclear. From the board, even you mentioned yourself that you're still learning the process on how things, but as was mentioned earlier, what is really important before we start drafting up regulations is we read the Constitution. That's the supreme law of the land. Nothing we do here in the legislature can trump the Constitution. And nothing that the board members' regulation does should trump the law that created it. Right? And that's the problem that we're having, is when the regulations coming out of zoning is conflicting with the Constitution and also the law that created it. In the zoning law itself, there's exemptions. And I've sat with the former administrator early on and spoke to her face to face about this is exempted. Why is zoning enforcing this exemption? And why is it changing from, like zoning office issued a permit to a business and then later on they're fining the business because they have a sign up, but that very same permit was issued by zoning, right? And there are several lawsuits that zoning lost because when it went to court or settled, maybe it was settled, we say, to avoid losing the case. And that's where we get into problems, because our government doesn't have money to keep settling and losing cases. So number one is, before we start making regulations, one, our employees must know the Constitution and the law that created the organization they represent, right? So I'm just going to do a summary of the common issues with Saipan's zoning process, which members here in the legislature, the local delegation, we need to work on. But at the same time, we also gave the the power for the zoning board to do some of these. Number one, lengthy approval times. Applicants often face delays due to multiple agency reviews, limited staffing and technical capacity, incompetent application requirements or incomplete application requirements, sorry, repeated requests for additional information. So earlier you mentioned hiring a public information officer. I think before we hire someone like that or that spend money on that position, we need to spend money on training and providing opportunities for our staff to grow. So for example, what I mean is like we look at jurisdictions with similar economic issues or jurisdictions that are doing well economically, and sending our staff, our zoning staff, to those areas to get professional development, right? Because we can keep promoting all the good stuff on social media, but if there's a lot of concerns that our business and our residents are feeling like their rights are being invaded, or so that's what I think investment needs to be made into staffing, professional development, and to increase technical capacity. Because when you're asking for blueprints from a business, I think that goes beyond zoning's role. That's a DPW. The structural stuff, that's DPW's role, not zoning. When you're talking about cockfights happening, illegal cockfights in Precinct 2, that is not, maybe a piece of that is zoning, but the number one thing, it will be probably sanitation and also DPW. But let me get into one, lengthy approval times, which impacts people by increased project costs, delayed business openings, discouragement of private investment. And what Senator Karina did bring up earlier, that was also a concern by board members intentionally missing announced meetings because maybe they didn't agree with what was going on in the meeting. So, that we need to look at. Or if they're too busy to attend the meetings, they shouldn't be even in the board, because that impacts the economy. Unclear or inconsistent regulations. Many residents and business report difficulty understanding permitted uses, variance requirements, conditional use permits, environmental review requirements. So this impact causes confusion and uncertainty. It increases the reliance on consultants and attorneys, which shouldn't be the case. Our role as a government, we should try and make it easier for businesses and our residents, not for businesses to start hiring lawyers to deal with zoning or deal with any agency. Overlapping agency jurisdiction. So again, this is another concern, concern number 3. Projects may require approvals from Zoning Board, Department of Public Works, Commonwealth Utilities Corporations. I know my colleague, Rep. Marissa, added that list. Oh, getting CUC's approval, like that's already, we're adding additional barriers to businesses getting started. So historic preservation and other agencies. And I know the administration created this one start process. You can move all the agencies together, but if the process itself hasn't changed, if we're still using paper, if we're still waiting for so-and-so to sign that document, it's still, we haven't really, we just rebranded, like we just changed the face of the process, but we didn't change the actual process. You still have everybody driving up to one location, but they're still waiting for permits, right? So the impact of that is duplicate reviews, lack of coordination, increased processing times. outdated zoning maps and codes. So some zoning regulations were designed for different economic conditions, lower population densities, traditional development patterns. So the impact is we have a difficulty accommodating mixed-use development, reduced flexibility for economic growth. And I just wanted to make a statement earlier. Some of this, the reason why we have to do this mixed commercial and all of this is because zoning it came in after the fact. So you already have other businesses that are in areas that really they shouldn't be. But is it fair for the government to evict somebody from this house when that house was there before the business, right? And we're referring to precinct 3, but if this person's house was there before and the business, everybody else, the neighbors decided to lease their property, we shouldn't penalize the resident, right? So we have to look at the history of things. Political and public trust concerns. Residents sometimes perceive uneven application of the rules. And this is such a small island, you can see it. When certain members and even members of the board, not just zoning, other members, certain families, their process is tomorrow you get a permit. That doesn't only affect zoning, that affects the government as a whole. Lack of transparency, excessive discretion in decision making. The impact is public opposition, litigation risk, and reduced confidence in government. So what are successful jurisdictions doing differently? And this is what we need to look at. I don't know if you mentioned Washington State or Washington, D.C.
I believe it's Washington, D.C.
D.C., yeah,
Yes.
very,
Advanced.
very, very different. I wouldn't say advanced because they have a lot
I
of
mean-
potholes in D.C.
Like in terms of population, development, that's what I meant.
So like one regulation in DC, for example, you can only build up to a certain height. Like, that's just an example because you need to be able to see the Capitol. But that's not a zoning, that's a building code. But Singapore, key practices. They have comprehensive long-term master plans, digital permit applications. That's a big one, digital permit applications. Other jurisdictions, even smaller than us, you can apply online. Like even here, like CEDA, you can apply for a loan online. Everything is all digital, right? That's a Commonwealth agency that already, move forward. So maybe we need to talk to them. Hey, how did they do their process? So we don't have to spend a lot. They already have a vendor. They already have proven their process. So that way we can get clear timelines for decisions. And Senator Karina, Vice President just mentioned earlier about medical. If you're gonna be excused for a lot of medical reasons and you cannot attend a meeting, that in itself you should just step down, right? Like if it's already getting to that point where you're missing so many meetings, we have to take our fiduciary duty seriously, and that would be a thing to do. Guam, for example, has modernized several development review procedures by expanding online applications, creating clearer permitting guidelines, streaming agency coordination. New Zealand, for example, has increasingly focused on fast-track development approvals, housing production incentives, digital planning systems, performance-based standards. So instead of regulating every detail, regulators focus on outcomes. So rather than penalizing, let's incentivize. Incentivize so that it becomes easy for people to comply with the legislation. So for example, not zoning, but if we're gonna talk about paying taxes, if we had our system online and it was very user-friendly, more people wouldn't have to flow into the office to pay their taxes. They can just pay it, you know. So we already have the one-start permit center, which is zoning, DPW, BCQ, HPO, perhaps.
BAH.
Huh?
Environmental health too, I think.
CHC.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're there.
So, you know, but again, the process. It can't be paper. It needs to be digital. It should be a smooth workflow. And just because it says 30 days on the law or 21 days, if we can get it out on that day, if it's a small business, let's get it out. Let's not wait. Because what happens is we bottleneck the process. And as a former director, that's what used to happen when I was working at the college. It's like, oh, it takes 4 days to get an admission letter. I was like, nope, we can get, that person came in today, issue it today. In fact, issue it within an hour or less, if you can, right? If all the documents are complete. So, let me just fast track this one. So, economic development perspective. The most successful jurisdictions are not necessarily those with the fewest regulations. They are the jurisdictions where the rules are clear, decisions are predictable, timelines are reliable, agencies coordinate effectively, and investors can accurately estimate cost and risk. For Saipan, the largest economic benefit would come likely from moving from discretionary paper-based driven process toward a predictable digital renewable, customer service oriented. I want to change that, not customer service, customer experience. Customer experience. Customer service is like, oh, we messed up, here's a gift card. Customer service is knowing the industry that's coming in and making sure we adapt to the needs of that industry without compromising the laws of the land. Because it's not a one-size-fits-all. And oftentimes that's what's happening. So this could stimulate investment in housing, tourism, renewable energy. I mean, we have an investor coming in already talking about EV. So we have to adapt.
Yes.
Because that's a whole different industry. Just that one industry that comes in is gonna dramatically change our quality of life here in a positive way, as long as our regulations align. So for us policymakers, whether it's the board or the legislature, a practical goal would be to reducing the average zoning and permitting timeline by 50%, right? And while maintaining environmental safeguards. Jurisdictions that achieve this often see increased private investment, more job creation, without sacrificing planning objectives. And I'm just gonna give an example. We need to know what is our role, right? And how does it impact the residents? How does it impact the business? There are about like 5 businesses that I've heard with that they were getting cited because they didn't have a planter's box in front of their main entrance. If you know, like, and remember, these regulations came in after the fact. The building was already up. You know, they should be grandfathered, but I'll give you an example. If you have a store that only has so many parking slots, and then it's on a major highway and you decide to put a planter's box that covers the entrance of the road, that's not a zoning. That should be DPW's right of way and structure and everything and flow of traffic. But in effect, when you demand the business to build that planter's box, what you are doing is you're creating a barrier to entry, right? You're affecting the sales of the business because they're gonna say, oh, it's more convenient to go to that other store that doesn't have this barrier in front of me. It's, you know, like, but when you put an obstacle in front of the entrance of the store, especially for the elderly, now they're gonna have to try and maneuver in between those barriers. So these are the kind of decisions, draconian decisions, that we need to reassess. And also the fees, you know. Yes, it looks nice that we just required a family to demolish a two-story concrete building. But in essence, what we have done is we have reduced the value of their property. Each hollow block probably costs like $8, right? And when you demolish the building, now you're returning the property back to raw land when they had an asset. Yeah, maybe it needed work. They needed to paint it and keep it up. But if it's still structurally sound, we should not require them or force them to demolish the building. Otherwise, they're going to get penalized. Okay, so we need to go back to the Constitution and remember who are the landlords of the land. Because it's not the government. It's people of Northern Marianas descent. And that's why it's very important to read the Constitution before we start making rules. And you know, so like you said earlier, interpretation of the law, that's a very key component. And if it says exempt on the zoning law, that means you guys shouldn't be touching. Technically, all those people that we had them pay zoning fees, I don't know. I think they can probably sue the government back for those fees, because if it says exempt, they shouldn't even be collected. So that's an area of concern that we also need to relook at. But I just want to thank you for jumping into this problem. And a lot of it, you know, came before you. But you do have experience working in the legislature, maybe not the CNMI, but you know a lot of those things. So I know you know where, you know, when concerns come out from the community, we need to listen. We don't just like say the regulation says this, because we can change the regulation to make it less of a blow. But you know, we're supposed to be helping our people. We're not just the residents and the community, and try to find the right fit given the parameters that were, you know, the law and everything. So that was a lot, and I just want to say thank you for your time. And you know, there's a lot of misconception that, you know, maybe Senator Castro and Senator Carina, we don't like zoning and we're out to get you, but it's not really the intent of that Senate legislation was not to dismantle zoning, to fire the staff or anything. It was like, if we don't understand our own process, we need to pause, reassess, and make this better, because it's hurting us right now, especially in this economic condition. You know, we don't want to be driving away potential business, and we don't want to be driving away residents. So thank you for your time, and Chair, I yield.
Thank you, Vice. Go ahead.
Chair, may
Go
I
ahead.
just quickly just touch on the several items that are good Vice Chair mentioned. So I believe, a lot of the issues that were mentioned, the political like pressure, biased, unbiased, like, things like that. I believe that can be truly addressed about with the text. And I understand where you're coming from about, like helping the community and all, but the agency in itself, it needs a structure. And the structure that we should be following is the Saipan zoning law. Now, as far as the modernizing, we're actually in the process of that already. We created this app for zoning only, obviously because that's where we're from. But I truly am like 100%. I 100% believe that the government should already implement the modernization, like processes, like because it really drives efficiency when you do that, like being able to submit online, being able to apply online, being able to pay online, for the fees. These will really help the community because they are able to do it from like wherever they are. They don't have to drive to several locations just to let's say renew a business permit, for example, or apply for a business permit. We can streamline this. So yes, definitely that modernizing the processes in zoning was one of the issues that we discussed that needed to be addressed. And so we actually have a prototype of the app already. And then when it comes to okay, so when I talked about social media presence, I did not mean hiring a public information officer. I think the agency is too small for that. And honestly, when we talked to the staff, they were all in line with the vision, and we wanted to do this with of course like being fiscally like accountable, and we did not want to spend any money. So the existing staff, they were willing to do this like as a team, and so there will be no additional cost to this. Definitely hiring for that purpose was not even considered. And the interagency, I think like working with other governmental agencies, it's also crucial in streamlining the process. I completely agree with you, and but I cannot speak for the other agencies, unfortunately. But we are already the zoning, at the very least, is already at the forefront of this conversation as we speak. And I know you mentioned a lot of things, but we, again, the 21 days, we reduced it to 5 to 7 business days. Again, this is still an application. They have to comply. We have to review. And if the certain documents are being required, it is still in line with the law, which is what the agency is working off of now. And hopefully, we can definitely make it simpler.
Thank you, Ms. Salinas. I recognize Senator Magofio.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a few clarifying questions and just some statement comments. So you touched on structure, right, that is badly needed at zoning. I just want to remind zoning and all the other government agencies that just because an existing law exists, it doesn't mean that it cannot be changed. So when an agency identifies or sees that, current laws are prohibitive or hindering, or just, that it's not working for today's realities, please feel free to come up with recommendations on the amendments. And there are 29 members here at the legislature. Find one that would introduce it. because there is no reason. I hear it all the time. Well, that's what the law says. This is what it is. Well, you could also make the changes, right? So do not be afraid to prepare an amendment to not just the law, but even regulations, existing regulations. If the existing regulations are very prohibitive and inefficient and ineffective in today's world, please take the initiative and make the changes. And if it can be done internally through regulations and board resolutions, please take that route, because it takes longer for the legislature to act on amendments and bills, right, to make it go into effect. But if things can be done internally and you guys identify that it's not working,
Yes.
right, please take the initiative and make those changes. And again, just do not be afraid to approach any of the 29 members to make the introduction of any amendments that you guys feel is needed. Second, you know, I really appreciate the fact that Rep. Marissa is bringing up the whole blighted property issue, right, where the landowner, the lessee, is left behind with blighted properties or the lessor is left behind by all these lessees that just kind of left the island. You know, and as you said earlier, right, the blighted property law as it stands right now does not have any recourse. Well, I certainly hope that the House would support the bill that I introduced last year in March, and it's Senate Bill 24-30, which is Doctrine of Waste, and that would actually take care of those issues, because what it is that the Doctrine of Waste would identify all these lands that are going to waste, decreasing in value because of all the blighted properties, and this was done to help the landowners here, right, to get back those properties because it's going to waste, right? And I'm hoping that this will bridge that gap, right, and provide the recourse that zoning can take to ensure that these lands that are wasting away, depreciating in value, can now be returned to the true landowners, right, so that they can do something with it, whether give it out to their family members or release it again, but at least give it back to them so that they can do something and not just let it waste there for the remainder of the lease term, which a lot of them are long-term, up to 55 years. You know, so that I'm hoping that the Senate will move on, move on it. And then we talked about process improvement with regards to application and permits. Yes, you know, the existing law allows them for 21 days, and you did give us an update that the process has improved. But if I may recommend, you know, right now, we did have our committee meeting last week with the Business License and Division of Revenue and Tax, and currently what they are doing is, and I think it was already touched on, you know, was mentioned by one of the members here, but conditional permitting. You know, if the permit or the application is not approved or issued within the time allowed as it exists right now in the law, then perhaps maybe zoning can also consider issuing conditional permits to allow the businesses to start moving along with the process until, you know, you guys complete whatever it is that you need to complete on your end. I'm not asking to fast track or disregard, or you still need to do your due diligence, but if you see that the permit or the application is going to take longer than the number of days allowed in the law, you know, please do consider that, because the business license is also already practicing that, where they are issuing conditional business licenses, you know, because the other permitting agents are still taking a while to fulfill those requirements, right? And so that's one. I don't know if zoning is also part of the renewal or expansion of a business license, but from the discussions that we had with business license now, before, when a business is expanding or relocating, or, you know, it's the same exact business, nothing, the line of business doesn't change, if they're expanding, let me give you an example. So let's say McDonald's, right, open up a business in Garapan, and then they decided to expand, like next year. When they make that expansion, they have to go through the whole process again and get another business license and go to all the permitting agencies to include zoning. So from what I understand from the business license now, they are completely stopping that. And if you are doing the same exact business but just expanding or relocating, they are now waiving that fee. So you no longer have to go and get five different business licenses for the same line of business that you are in. So that's, so that's something that zoning could perhaps look into, talk to the business license and see, how you guys can probably mirror that. And last but not least, I just wanted to kind of ask for clarification. So in your statements earlier, you talked about priority sites when you were discussing about the blighted properties. And so can you just define what priority sites mean for us so that we understand, why the focus are in certain areas of the island? Because you did say that you've identified, I think, 60 or 70 priority sites. So what does a priority site mean?
Priority site. Okay,
Yeah.
so this is more like on the admin side. We just get reports from the acting zoning administrator. To be honest, I don't exactly know what the parameters are of these priority sites. They were set before I came in. I just accepted them as like fact. But I will get that information to you, Senator, as soon as I get it from.
Great. Thank you. And I know that you and I met prior to the typhoon, and you have provided me a lot of wonderful updates and the vision, right, to include the app that you guys have already created, which is very, interaction. The interaction is there, and it's a lot easier to follow, right?
Yes.
People are going to be able to apply things online
Yes.
and on the go. And unfortunately, a lot of those process improvements or the vision cannot move forward if the board continues to lack quorum. You can never act on those action items that you have envisioned if the board cannot even meet to discuss it and then approve it. So
Yes.
please prioritize that should you get confirmed, and make sure that there's enough number of board members so that you guys can conduct your meetings, move along with all these improvements that you guys are envisioning for the CNMI. Thank you, Chair Ayer.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Senator Magofnia. Any further members? All right, Ms. Salinas, I just want to thank you for accepting the renomination. I know there was a lot discussed today and a lot of questions, but please take everything into consideration. I notice, Floor Leader Marissa keeps saying, I don't know why I keep saying the word no, but I notice you keep saying the word noted. So please take those notes. I know it's a lot to take, and should you get confirmed, please, when the board reconvenes, follow up with that comprehensive maybe amendments. I know Senator Karina said if there's a change that needs to be done, reach out to one of the 29 members. But if we can put all those changes together in one time, and also have a sit down and maybe talk about the different concerns and issues in the different precincts and in the villages, so we can get that all all in one shot if possible. So once again, thank you. Let's keep the communications open regarding the zoning issues. Oh yeah, that's right. Well, since zoning only affects SNILD, there's 21 members, but the other 8 can still reach out to us too. If it's going to be a problem if all 21 members are not available. I mean, come on, right? But yeah, with nothing further, I just want to say thank you, and you can go ahead and remain seated there, or if you want to move back to the gallery.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. All right, members. Any further discussion regarding this, the renomination of Ms. Salinas? Ready? All right, can I get a motion to recommend approval to the SNILD
So move.
All right, a motion has been made and has been seconded. Any discussions?
Ready?
Ready? All in favor for the motion to recommend approval, please say aye. All opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it. The motion carries. Thank you. All right, we'll move down to miscellaneous, and the floor is open. We recognize the floor leader.
I know that we spent a lot of time discussing key issues that really affect the growth and the economic growth of the 3rd Senatorial District. And it is really time that even as senators and House reps, we really start picturing and mapping out what we want to see different and how we want to look at investors coming in with this holistic and this realistic approach that the land is all we have. And if we cannot develop and have a plan to what the next 15 years is going to look like with foreign investment, with development within the precincts, with core tourism district areas, then really we are doing a disservice. And we need to figure out then, do we really need zoning, or do we let the responsibility now lie somewhere else? Because if the administrative levels create more bureaucratic red tape, then my goodness, then maybe we need to go backwards and figure out again. And I'm stuck at 94.3 because we had this issue yesterday with CCAC. And I'm going to ask my senators now from the 3rd Senatorial District, take a look at these executive orders, because a lot of them are really duplication. And that is the creation of all of these things that now hamper certain boards to really do its due diligence and its justice for what its main purpose, right? Like, for example, we have Secretary of Finance and we have OMB. Make it make sense, no? Then we have Office of Planning and Management. Then we have zoning. All these things that fall under CIP. There's just these duplications of administrative. I don't know if it was to create jobs or make it more difficult or make it more bureaucratic. I'm not sure, right? But who am I to interpret that? All I know is that it's creating issues now in this moment. And we need to figure out a better way, because while we try to keep investors here, and the same token with all of this stuff going on the middle administrative part, we're chasing investors away. And then that also then impacts our economic growth. But then let's look at our infrastructure. Water, power, inconsistent, expensive. Who's going to come and invest here? We have all of these issues, right, that are really affecting how we move, really. And we need to start really looking at how we want to design and reimagine, because we're not going to be here. I don't know when God is going to take me, but all I'm going to say is I cannot and will not. I hope not. Because my kids, if they decide to live here, I'll tell you what, it's going to look the same way it's looking today. And what's the point? Really? Why are we here? What's the justice to that? Absolutely nothing. That's horrible. I would hate for my children to grow up, and all of our children to grow up here and still be slaves to a system that has no mission, no goals, no objectives, no proper planning, nothing. I would not. I just can't. I can't. That gives me nightmares, and we need to do better. And I hope that our senators, also revisit and take a look at all of those executive orders, because that might be one of the key issues as to why we're still operating like it's 1994. Okay, thank you, Chairman. I yield.
Thank you, Representative Flores. Senator Corina.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a couple of things. So yes, I agree with Representative Marissa. I believe OPD was created to address a lot of these planning issues, which does consist or is composed of all these relevant departments, right, to include zoning, DPL, CEDA, because they all need to come together and have this one vision, right, and see how we can fit things into the CNMI and not duplicate each other's role. But I don't even believe they're like having those meetings as they were intended to have, right? So again, maybe we need to revisit those again and start calling them in and say, hey, what's going on? Because everybody's doing their own thing. And the whole purpose of OPD was for Office of Planning and Development. Hello, the name says it all. But for some reason, it's not happening. So maybe, again, like you said, it is incumbent upon us to take action because our children will suffer, you know, if not worse than what we're suffering right now, because we didn't clean up the stuff that we needed to clean. So I agree with you. I also like to continue to ask zoning to please, I've repeatedly asked if they could be recording their board meetings and post them at a later time whenever, so that it allows us to watch it at a later time when it's convenient for us, because a lot of the times we have conflicting commitments, right, the schedule. And so a lot of times we can't be there to attend because we also have our own commitments. And so I don't see the reason why they are not able to record their meetings and publish it so that the public can also watch it when it's convenient for them, so that they can understand what's going on, the decisions that are being made or lack of thereof, you know, because we need to understand what's going on and what's causing all these inefficiencies and deficiencies. So again, zoning, I'm asking to please consider publishing your board meetings, you know, create a YouTube channel, I don't care, right? Facebook, social media, do something, right? But we really need to have that transparency. So that's all I have, Speaker. Thank you. Ayu.
Thank you. And just also to add, I just forgot to mention this in my notes, but yeah, the consistency, right? There are some things where it's like SNILD has to amend the law. But then there are some things where it's like, oh, board agrees to rezone. Like, if it's that easy, right? Why have to go through legislation? But we need to clear that ground on whether, at what point where they can rezone without the legislature, you know. So anyways, just things to ponder moving forward. Yeah, Vice?
I just wanted to say, whoever the consultant is, it's also important that they're well versed in zoning, but not just zoning in general, but zoning from a successful, economically successful jurisdiction as well.
Floor, shoot.
So, you know, and I think we're all in this agreement, right, that there are obviously some administrative and functions, no, that are not functioning correctly. But this also pertains to a lot of the public land that's there, right? And let's not forget that IPI has been there for a while. And who's responsible for that, right? Zoning now is saying, oh, let me check with DPL, right? And once again, this fragmented, I'm not sure, let me double check kind of conversation, right? Either somebody has to take some sort of initiative and say, look, you know, if you're going to take that oath, right, as this nominee will take, that is your power. That's your conscience. But anyway, back to this IPI situation, right? That's a public land. And they're not acting on anything over there, really. I called and I had asked about, you know, the overgrown forests that they have going on. They've got all kinds of equipment outside, while on the same token, we're in a bankruptcy hearing. I don't know what's happening over there. But you mean to tell me that within all of these years and all of this back and forth, right, and there's nothing that's open to the public unless Senator Corina calls them in at the Senate to say anything, there's no record anywhere of this conversation? I mean, and that's public land, right? At what point do you say, I'm going to take it back, right? At what point do you say that's enough, right? And this goes back to leadership, you know? And again, I'm just talking about all of these things that are happening. I can't stress enough how disheartening it is to drive within all of our precincts and see just this. I swear it's like someone regurgitated and just left all of these things. And it just doesn't make sense. You know, I can drive one way and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go and I'm hopefully I can get to the next store for something, whatever. But I have to pass like 3 garment before I get to. You know, I don't understand. I don't understand, honestly. But my area is high dense. I don't think we can do any more in the central location, but to fix it and improve the power, improve the water, because that is just really heavy. I don't know, Speak, you might want to start taking them to the south side in Kiza area and maybe up Navy Hill, because if you really take a drone and you look at that, honestly, I don't know what's happening, but now I have section, obviously, section 8 in front of a house that's a compound. Who approved that? Within an area that is highly, with all of these children, I'm not saying anything, right? But who in the world would approve to devalue the land that was there years before somebody approved this type of business now? No? We're talking about zoning and approving and all of this, but you know, we're talking about within a district, right? Which is the central district. I have a compound here, and then right in front of it, overlooking this beautiful island, that's the asset, is my sunset in my district. And then I'm gonna have someone build a section 8 in front of, at 4 stories high, devalue the land behind it, which is a private compound, for this asset. I mean, let's make sense of it. We know what happened, right? But who failed there, ne? Somebody failed to actually conduct this due diligence and really fight for the people that are already there. You cannot have that anymore. It's too heavy. But anyway, that's just what I have to say. So I hope that they do better, and I hope that, you know, at some point we map out what we want to see for the next 10 years. Thank you, Speaker.
Yeah, and also make clarifications on the definitions of mixed commercial, village commercial, you know, side street commercial, I don't know.
But it
Yes.
just tells you, right? Because if the board themselves are confused, why haven't they acted on it to change so that they have clear guidance? I don't understand. So they just simply accept, let's just stay status quo and be complacent? No, that's what I'm saying. Like, if you see something that's wrong or is not working, por favor, change it.
Right. Well, I think that applies to all the boards. Let's be real. You know, this is not just isolating zoning. Every board, and there's not much of them left, no, that really have the power to effectuate change based on the decisions they make. But that is a blanket to every board here. You have a fiduciary responsibility, and if you can't do it, then why take it? Right? I don't know. Anyway, I wish I didn't say that because something came out on Facebook about me. So I apologize. I didn't mean that. I like to take that off record, strike. Anyway,
Okay.
but you know, I really hope that, you know, we are now we're working together. We might agree to disagree, but the end result is what are we gonna pass on to the future, right? And how do we succeed, and how do we ensure that there is a plan for economic stability and thriving of our people, as opposed to just surviving every single year. That's all we do, come back to survive. And some point you get tired and you just move on. And we're seeing this mass exodus starting to happen. Thank you.
Okay, motion has been made for adjournment and has been seconded. Any discussions? Ready? All right, all in favor for the motion, please say aye. All opposed, please say nay. The ayes have